Hey everyone, Romeo here, a fellow Spanish language learner. In this video, I want to answer a question that a lot of people have when they start learning Spanish. And that question is, when should you hire an online Spanish teacher or tutor? My answer is probably going to be different than what a lot of people expect. I do not think most people should hire an online Spanish teacher, tutor, or language partner right at the beginning. I think most people should first spend time building a basic foundation in the language on their own. And when I say foundation, I mean understanding the basic structure of Spanish well enough that you are not completely lost every time you see or hear a sentence. Now, why do I say that? Because there's a common assumption that if you hire a teacher, you will automatically learn faster than if you study by yourself. A friend of mine actually said this to me directly. He basically told me, surely you would learn faster by hiring someone than teaching yourself. And that sounds reasonable on the surface, but the truth is, there's no automatic answer to that because it depends on who you hire, what they teach, and how structured their teaching actually is. If your teacher does not have a clear curriculum, and if they are just teaching you whatever comes to mind that day, then yes, you are learning something, but not necessarily in a structured sequence. And if you are not learning in a structured sequence, then it is not that different than watching random Spanish videos on YouTube, feeling productive and still not building the language step by step. That's one of the biggest problems in language learning in general. People confuse exposure with progress. They confuse doing something with doing the right things in the right order. That is why I always push people toward a structured base first. For me, that base is built through a curriculum like Complete Spanish Step by Step, combined with consistent listening, reading, review, and speaking practice. That is also the logic behind the 1 Year to Spanish Fluency Tracker. Phase 1 is a first pass through the basics with heavy input, and Phase 2 turns that into more active output. And that leads to the second reason I would not hire a teacher right away. A teacher cannot transfer Spanish into your brain for you. A lot of people act as if having a teacher means the teacher is going to somehow beam all this knowledge into your head. That is not how this works. Whether you have a teacher or not, you still have to remember what you were taught. You still have to review it. You still have to see the same structures again and again. And you still have to do the exercises. And eventually, you still have to produce the language yourself. That part does not go away. So if someone hires a teacher too early, before they even have the basics, what often happens is that they end up trying to outsource responsibility. They start thinking, well, as long as I keep showing up to the lessons, I'm learning. Not necessarily. Showing up to lessons is not the same thing as building recall, internalizing sentence structure, or being able to actually say things later without help. The real work still has to be done by you. The third reason is practical. A teacher costs money and a teacher has a schedule. You have to work around their availability and your availability. And if life gets too busy, those lessons could become one more thing you are trying to fit into your week. But if you are studying on your own with a real curriculum, you can work at your own pace. You can study early in the morning, late at night, or split your time however you want. And that flexibility matters because one of the biggest advantages of self-study is that you control the schedule. If your system is clear, and if the daily work is already laid out for you, then you don't need another person just to create structure. That structure can already exist in the material and in your routine. The fourth reason is that hiring a teacher too early can actually be discouraging. A lot of beginners imagine that having a teacher will make them feel more confident. Sometimes it does the opposite, because now you are face to face with another person who may start speaking to you in sentences that you don't fully understand or asking you to respond using structures you have not really learned yet. And that can feel uncomfortable. It can feel embarrassing. It can make you feel like you're behind. Believe me, these are the exact feelings I had when I used an online tutor or would show up to some random in-person study session when I traveled abroad early in my study days before I was ready. This is not the best starting environment for most people. Again, I think most people will be better off first getting familiar with the basic grammar, the basic sentence patterns, and the basic vocabulary so that when they eventually do talk to someone, they are not starting from zero. They are starting from a real base. That base is what gives you confidence, not the teacher. The teacher may help you use that confidence later, but they do not create it for you out of thin air. You create it by doing the work. That work is going through a structured book, doing the exercises, listening to the audiobook, and saying the answers out loud. That combination gives you repeated contact with the same structures in a way that is much more stable than just jumping straight into paid conversation. Another reason people want to teach it early is because they want someone to explain things to them. They think, well, if I get confused, the teacher can answer my questions. That's true. But in 2026, that is just not as strong of an argument as it used to be. Because if your main issue is, I do not understand this grammar point, or why is this verb used this way, or what is the difference between these two structures, you can usually get a very good explanation from AI. And not only can you get an explanation, you can ask follow-up questions immediately. You can say, explain it more simply. Give me more examples. Explain it like I'm five. You can say, now compare this against another example. And you can keep going until it makes sense. That matters because if you only have a 30-minute lesson with a tutor, and 10 minutes of that lesson is spent explaining one grammar concept, that is a third of your paid time gone. Now, to be clear, I am not saying teachers have no value. I am saying that a lot of the value people think they need from a teacher at the beginning can now be handled more efficiently in other ways. So, when should you hire an online Spanish teacher or tutor? My answer is after you already understand the basics of the language, after you have worked through a real curriculum, after you have seen the common structures enough times that they no longer feel foreign, after you can read basic Spanish and have some idea of how sentences are built, and after you have at least some confidence producing simple things on your own. At that point, a teacher becomes much more useful because now the teacher is not being used to build your entire foundation from scratch. Now the teacher is being used to extend what you already have. You will then be able to use them for conversation practice, clean up mistakes, and pressure test your recall in a more natural setting. You will be able to use them to expand your knowledge and not use them to rescue you from the work that you chose not to do yourself. That is a much better use of a tutor or language partner. So, if you are a complete beginner, my advice is simple. Do not impulsively hire a teacher just because it feels like the serious thing to do. First, build your base, work through a structured process, and get familiar with the language. Ask AI questions when you get stuck. Do the exercises. Read, listen, and speak your answers out loud. And then later, once you actually have something to work with, decide whether a teacher would be meaningfully helpful to you or not. And honestly, by that point, you may realize you don't even need one. Or if you do want one, you will know exactly why you want one and exactly how to use them. That is a much better position to be in than paying for lessons just because you think that is what language learners are supposed to do. If you want a structured way to build that foundation first, this is exactly why I created the 1 Year to Spanish Fluency Tracker. It recommends the exact resources to use and is built around a clear daily system so that you are not guessing what to do next. That means working through a set curriculum and doing consistent daily tasks across reading, listening, vocabulary review, and speaking drills instead of randomly jumping from resource to resource. I explain exactly what that system looks like in this video here. Anyway, I hope this video was super helpful. If it was, give this video a like. And I'm curious, if you used an online Spanish tutor or language partner before you were ready, share what that experience was like in the comments below. And as always, good luck on your journey to building more usable, functional Spanish. Peace.